Today we paint a portrait with the haunting story of the lady in the blue hat. Welcome. If you've watched any of my previous portrait videos, you know I like to tell stories about the subjects that I paint. Today's sitter is a bit different. She's real, but only in my mind and on the canvas. She's a figment of my imagination. But that doesn't mean she doesn't have a story. In fact, she might just have the most haunting story of them all. So go ahead, make yourself a cup of tea or pour a glass of wine, get comfortable and listen to the harrowing tale of the woman in the blue hat. For this portrait, I'm using Paul Rubens' opera oil paints, which on Amazon are marketed as neon. These are new to me, so I decided to swatch the colours. It's dominated by reds and oranges, which feels like a very limited palette. You wouldn't want this as your day-to-day set, but in my opinion, there are 4 standout colours to supplement your existing oil paints. That glowing golden orange, for me the star of the show. Then there's the luminous lemony yellow, wonderful. And the ghostly green that reminds me of Slimer. And that gorgeous, gorgeous pink pigment. I could probably do without the others. However, if the aim is a neon colour show, then I guess the others might very well be required, and they better perform under UV light. It's hard to show on camera, but here's the swatch under ultraviolet. I'd say mixed results. Some colours, the yellow, pink and golden, perform very well. Green is okay, but the rest are dull and don't truly belong in the set. Some don't pick it up at all. The thing is, the paint is quite thin and translucent, so it can lack a punch. And as a painter, it's hard to not introduce white for a gradient of colour. And there's no white in the pack. So you mix in your own titanium white and it just kills it. Neon aside, rightly or wrongly, I intend to use these as I would any normal set of oil paints and see how it goes. Or is that see how it glows? I'll do the big reveal and see how the final painting looks under UV light at the end of the video. Every night at 1:13 AM, Irene's phone lit up. The motion sensors notifying her mobile phone that it detected movement from inside her home. Always at the same time, and always, it would seem, for no particular reason. She assumed it was her cat. That is, until the night. She finally decided to stay awake. You see, Irene's life was anything but ordinary. Born in 1961, her Scottish father, John Brew, had missed her arrival after a few too many whiskies. But he was first through the doors at the registry office, proudly appointing her Irene. Irene Brew. A nod to her orange hair and his favourite soft drink. An act Irene's mother could never forgive, before she eventually took her own life. Irene, however, overcame the unfortunate name, an alcoholic yet loving troubled father, and the loss of her mother. Despite being an introvert, she grew into a strong, confident woman. She held a striking presence, elegant, articulate, and quietly captivating. She settled into the sea-lashed village of Robin Hood's Bay, where smugglers had once run contraband through tunnels beneath the cliffs of Whitby. The wind there carried stories, and Irene read all of the folklore. Driven by a deep desire to help others, she graduated with honours in psychology in 1983 and quickly found her calling in hypnotherapy. Not the performance kind you see on Britain's Got Talent or a Friday night in your local bowling club, but something deeper, more profound. Like a sex addict's legs, her reputation spread. Gamblers, alcoholics, deviants, nymphos, and anyone chasing the antidote to a failing life. They flew across oceans just to sit in her green velvet therapy chair, positioned unassumingly in the middle of her own living room, as if it were just any chair. It's claimed her hypnosis is so powerful, 20 years of drug addiction can be cured in a single sitting. At least, that's what they said. So as Irene conquers her addiction, at this point, 10-15 minutes into the paintbrushes, I'm making solid progress, adding meat to the bones, so to speak. Surprisingly, the neon colours mix to a very usable flesh tone. Yellow, red, a little blue, and a lot of titanium white to dull and orange. Surprisingly, the neon colours mix to a very usable flesh tone. I'll be interested to see if the skin glows under a UV light. And I'm using a cool purple for the shadow tone. Again, using titanium white mixed this time with opera purple to keep it simple. My priority is to make a coherent painting. How it looks under the UV light is a secondary thought. Maybe it'll be an epic failure. But I'm excited to see what happens at the end. After all, experimenting with your art is a great way to grow your skill set. And at this point, what will it look like? Your guess is as good as mine's. But next up is the yellow blouse, and I'm hopeful that will leave a strong impression under the UV light, especially as I intend to use some very pure colour. Irene loved twice. First Trevor, confident, strong, he made her laugh. He filled her world with meaning. One summer evening in 1985, by this time she was 24, she kissed him goodnight as he nodded off in the green chair, the television static buzzing softly as the station stopped broadcasting and went off air, as it did in those days. By morning, Trevor was gone. No note, no motive, no trace. The empty chair. His side of the bed cold. That moment broke something deep inside of her. Years passed before she tried loving again. Gavin for a brief fling. In 1991. He was the opposite of Trevor. Clumsy around women, shy, and a bit of a nerd. He treated Irene like a goddess. For a time, she felt hope creep back in. Then one night, he too fell asleep in the green chair. And by morning, gone. No answers. Silence. After that, Irene stopped believing in goodbyes. She swore off relationships, cursed men as heartless bastards, and adopted a cat that she named Vincent. From then on, she kept lovers at arm's length. If she invited them over, it was always on her terms. They never made it to the bedroom. Regular one-night stands happened on the therapy chair, and every morning she would wake up alone in her own bed. The chair, always empty. I never thought I'd become a cat lady, she muttered once to her hungover father, who was slouched in the chair after a Sunday of too much alcohol. Despite constant nagging from Irene, he defiantly refused her help. I could cure you, she'd argue time after time. I don't want a clear head. I don't want to remember, he snapped. Perhaps Irene had repeated that line once too many, as her father too disappeared that night. And she never saw him again. By then, she had given up caring.
Blue moon, you saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. Blue moon, you knew just what I was there for. You heard me saying a prayer for someone I really could care for. Without a love of my own. Blue moon,
The point of this exercise was to see what I could do in under an hour, and It's a reminder that you don't have to spend months on a painting.
Of course, I didn't know that was a big fat lie until the following morning when I woke up and absolutely hated that painting. But looking back many weeks later as I edit this video, I think it was harsh, and it was a valiant 1 hour painting. But the artist in me, or rather the backstreet plastic surgeon, aka the butcher, just couldn't help but totally redesign the face. So with that, back to the painting and back to the story. She grew to embrace the solitude, which seemed deeper after her father disappeared. It gave her room to think, and over time she eventually matured beyond the one night stands. But she never loved again. Every New Year's Day she would hike up the cliffside to plant seeds of purple flowers, a symbol of renewal. And by late summer, the edges of Whitby would be crowned in violet, more so by the passing of the years. She didn't know why she did it. It was a subconscious yearning. It just felt necessary. Maybe replacing something she didn't have, a mother, her father, a lover. Then came the recession of 2008. Jobs vanished. Families crumbled. Crime spiked. Fear crept in across the country, and into Irene's bones. She installed state-of-the-art alarms, motion sensors, and CCTV, both inside and out. Each night she checked her locks, activated the alarms, and climbed into bed with a true crime book and a cup of peppermint tea. The alert started shortly after, every night at exactly 1:13 a.m. Her phone vibrated on the bedside table, notifying that movement was detected inside the house. Given she was a light sleeper, she found it odd that the sound of vibration never woke her, but the notification was the first thing she'd see every morning, without fail. Probably the cat, she told herself time after time. As the years passed by, it just became part of her routine, until the one night she decided to stay awake. At this point, let's take a quick pause, just to say, despite a battle with the face, made harder with quick drying paints, we're finally on to the finishing straight, and I'll let you enjoy the end of the story with the finishing touches, and maybe a twist. Then of course, we'll have the big reveal under the UV lights. Irene got caught up in a movie, watching Silence of the Lambs on Channel 4, which ended shortly after midnight. She looked at her watch, less than an hour before the nightly notification was received. So she made a cup of tea and moved to her bedroom and watched the live camera feed on her mobile phone. Sat in silence as the minutes clocked by. 11 minutes past 1, 12 minutes past 1, 13 minutes past 1. Nothing. For the first time in years, there was no alert, no movement, no noise. Perplexed, she sat and thought, scratching her head, and decided to replay the recording from the previous night. Her heart slowed. Was she finally going to learn the truth? There, on the grainy footage, was her own sleeping body, restless, then rising at 1:13. She drifted out of the bedroom, sleepwalking, her white night dress trailing behind her like smoke. Like a ghost, her expression blank. She walked straight to the room with the therapy chair. She didn't sit in it, she sat beside it, and she rocked, back and forth, gently whispering to the air. But Irene couldn't hear what was said, so she turned the volume up, static. Then, relax, relax, her recorded voice cooed. You're safe. I'm in control now. It was her therapy tone. Soft, confident, practiced. She was guiding someone into a trance, yet there was no one there. No client, just her. She continued. Sink deeper. Let go of fear. Believe in your strength. Believe in your strength. Then came the final phrase, delivered in a voice both tender and terrifying. You can do anything. Take the leap of faith. Fly. Fly from Whitby Cliff.
well, what started as a 1 hour painting, which I successfully done, until I decided I didn't like that painting. And the next day I painted for another hour. And this is day 3, where I've done 5-10 minutes of painting, just to do some minor highlights. And the moral of the story is, by setting out to do a 1 hour painting, it forced me to be more spontaneous and quick with the brush strokes, more deliberate, and it meant I carried on in that vein. This portrait would normally take me a month and countless sittings, really pernickety, looking at the detail. Instead, I was able to stand back and attack it quickly. And I think you can tell in the style of the painting that it is quick and vibrant, and I think it's successful.
First up, normal paints under the UV light, and now the grand reveal. What does our painting look like under ultraviolet lights? Irene stared at the screen, ice in her veins. For 20 years she had thought the chair was for her clients. Now she wondered. No, she knew, in her heart, the sleeping therapist had guided each and every lover and her father to the cliffs of Whitby, and the smugglers' tunnels would now be awash with their lifeless bodies.